Hey Fleet Feet Runners, this is Garrett McLaughlin, and today I want to talk about how to improve hamstring flexibility without stretching. What I noticed over the years, especially for myself in particular, I was so tight in my hamstring, I stretched and stretched and stretched and really got nowhere. Or I kicked my leg up, I leaned forward. I worked on the static stretching and it didn't really help me in terms of hamstring flexibility. It felt good at the time, it felt like my hamstrings were more loose, but I could never feel like I got more range of motion. I was never more mobile or more flexible besides just temporarily feeling better. It wasn't until I started working on slower eccentric movements like your Romanian deadlift or your single leg deadlift that I really broke past that plateau and developed a better overall flexibility. What I'm finding are static stretching is good. It will help you temporarily feel like you are less tight through a muscle group, but oftentimes it's not the best strategy to actually increase overall range of motion. So if you're someone that's really restricted through the hamstrings, I definitely recommend working on slow eccentric movements. Just to demonstrate what our Romanian deadlift and single leg deadlift are, it's basically just hip hinged movements, and we're thinking specifically about the hamstring. So hamstrings attached right here, ischial tuberosity or sit bone, a lot of people call it. 3 muscles go behind the thigh and attach just below the knee joint. So when we actually hinge from the hips and lean forward, the hamstrings, because I'm tilting forward, my pelvis is rotating, my hamstrings are lengthening as I go through that motion. So at all times, I'm in control because it's a movement, not a stretch. I'm moving through the range of motion. My hamstrings are controlling kind of the descent of my pelvis as I come down. So it doesn't feel like I'm cranking on my hamstrings too much. I'm going to feel a stretch at the bottom, but it's not like I'm overly trying to really push on the hamstrings in that position. So what I want to work on, or what I want you guys to work on if you're feeling tightness in the hamstring, is teaching yourself how to hinge through the hips. I'm trying to narrow this space, move right around the hip joint, narrow the space between my thigh and my rib cage. I'm hinging over, but I'm trying to do that without flexing my spine. My back is always flat. Once you get that down, incorporating more exercises, strength exercises that you use that range of motion is important. So we can do the Romanian deadlift with a dumbbell, with a barbell, kettlebells, anything. So if I'm holding this dumbbell, hips back, hinging through the hips as I go down, I'm already starting to feel a stretch in my hamstrings. I'm going to drive through my hips to stand up. This is a good way, a non-threatening position for the body to help develop hamstring flexibility because I'm in control of the movement. That's the biggest thing. Static stretching, a lot of times, there's always this perception of threat that our body's trying to guard against. But if we put ourselves in a position where we're in control, it's less threatening, and we can actually get more range of motion that helps stay longer. So after we work on that, doing that on a single leg can also be important because when it comes to hamstring flexibility, we always need to think about how are our glutes working. Are we firing our glutes? Are there any weakness or inhibition? If there's weakness or inhibition, then we could be overly working the hamstring because something else has to work harder. If the strongest muscle in our hip that propels us forward is not firing to its greatest extent, the hamstrings, the calf, other muscles down the backside of the leg could be compensating, which is leading to more tightness and fatigue in those muscles. So single leg deadlift, a little harder. If I have a dumbbell in my hand, 1 dumbbell, 2 dumbbells, again, trying to progress this, do body weight for sure if you need to learn the movement. Hinging back, leg goes back, body comes forward, driving through the hip to stand up. So I'm trying to actively use this hip as I go down, just like before, lengthening right through that hamstring to give me some good flexibility there. So those are some simple strategies to help work on hamstring flexibility. Why I like them is because you're under control, you're eccentrically lengthening to control and lengthen the hamstrings, but you're also using the glutes. The glutes are so important from a running standpoint to be able to propel yourself forward, but also help prevent injuries at the hamstring, lower back, and other areas throughout the kinetic chain. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to shoot me a message, leave a comment below, let me know how I can help you, and I hope this video helped you in some way.